Hello, I'm Mark Northam, the Secretary of the New South Wales ACT Independent Education Union, with an update on negotiations which are being conducted with the Association of Independent Schools on your behalf. Members in some 240 independent schools across New South Wales and the ACT have been conducting chapter meetings since late 2020. These meetings have been in response to an unprecedented approach adopted by the Association of Independent Schools. Since the inception of award coverage in independent schools, there has never been a situation where a centralised wage increase has not been agreed across the sector. Unprecedented. IU members have been baffled and somewhat taken aback as to the situation, and many members, including reps, have spent much time in their principal's office negotiating increases throughout 2021. We have a deep appreciation to those reps and other members who've been supportive of that. Whilst acknowledging the reality of COVID, the economy has bounced back. Leading economic commentators, including the Reserve Bank, support that notion. Student numbers are holding up, or in many schools are actually improving. Funding follows students. Austerity is not the solution to the situation we're currently in. The Association of Independent Schools, and more importantly the principal in your school, should adopt a proactive approach which ensures that teachers are attracted to and remain in the profession. You deserve a pay rise beyond the 5% over 4 years which is on offer. Schools are complex workplaces, and to devalue teachers post-pandemic, when education was flipped and schools ran in very difficult circumstances and ran very successfully, is both unrealistic and unproductive. I'll now hand over to our Deputy Secretary, Carol Matthews, for a closer analysis of what the AIS has put on the table.
So finally, at our recent meeting last week on the 8th of June, we got an offer from the AIS, but it was disappointing to say the least, and our position is that it's totally unacceptable. Members would be aware that we had a comprehensive claim dealing with a range of matters. The AIS response, in contrast, was totally limited. Firstly, the pay rise. As Mark indicated, the AIS has only offered 5% over 4 years if you include this year, 2021, 22, 23 and 24, and that includes an increase of 2.5% from next February, inclusive of the increase that you got this year. So if you work in a school which has already given you 2% or 2.5% this year, you'd be looking at either a 0 or a 0.5% pay rise next year. The union considers that it is totally unacceptable and well below inflation and pay settlements that we've had in other sectors. It's also less than what is anticipated in the government sector. The AIS agreed to a minor change to improve progression from the Band 1 to Band 2 for provision teachers. That's welcome. It brings the AIS agreements in line with the agreements applying in other sectors, so long overdue, and it has no benefit at all for teachers already above that level. There were also some changes in conditions which were offered. They were disappointing to say the least. In respect of emergency disaster leave, that would almost never apply and is worse than existing practice, we understand. For support staff, that leave would be unpaid, whereas many support staff, if they're affected by a flood, for example in northern New South Wales, they would have been given paid leave in those circumstances. There are some other minor changes, but in most cases they simply reflect obligations that the employers already have. An example of that is they have agreed to unpaid leave for domestic violence leave. That is already part of the legal minimum conditions of employment. So the union is very disappointed with this proposal. There are further meetings scheduled, but we'll need to see a very significant improvement in the pay offer and conditions before we could recommend a yes vote for any multi-enterprise agreements next term.